A lot about the term unconscious bias and possibly in your workplace as well. We're here with Suri today to talk about this. Suri, will you please tell us what unconscious bias is?
Hey, Carrie, happy to. Unconscious bias is a state of mind. It's a way of thinking. Essentially, it is a combination of preferences and predispositions that we might have that we don't even realize we have because of the way our brain works. In many cases, unconscious biases are fantastic. They keep us safe, they keep us comfortable, they keep us secure. In other cases, unconscious biases could result in suboptimal actions, and that's the sort that we got to watch out for. It's kind of like cholesterol. You know, there's good cholesterol and bad cholesterol, and the same is true for unconscious biases.
So you brought up cholesterol, and we think of science and biology when we think of that word. So how does unconscious bias relate to science and biology?
A lot of neuroscientific research has been done on unconscious bias by folks much better than me as the ambulance goes by. The way this works is there are 11 million bits of information that's being beamed at us at any given moment, even right now, that we don't even realize are coming at us. And there are different types of cues. There are visual cues, there are verbal cues, auditory, kinesthetic, our body's telling us what's going on, kinetic cues, spatial. So there are 11 million, and our brains are capable of processing 40. Not 40,000, not 400,000, not 4 million, 40. So you can imagine what happens to the other 11 million minus 40 cues. The brain processes them unconsciously based upon all of our experiences since we were born and all of the pattern recognition mechanisms that the brain has developed. And inherent in those autopilot decisions that our brain makes are unconscious biases.
Okay. So what are some other biases that may either kind of go with unconscious bias, or you said unconscious bias can be good, so what are maybe some of the bad biases that we can just be aware of?
Sure. I'll give you one example. I don't know if you've ever bought something on late night TV because you couldn't go to sleep. I have a whole closet full of them, and my friends have stopped talking to me because I tried selling them the extra gadget that I bought. Now look at how that works. I mean, typically if you've seen those little infomercials, they'll say, this costs you 99 or 100 bucks in the market, but you don't have to pay that. It's 50 bucks, and by the way, we're giving you a special discount now. It's down to 25, and you get 2 gadgets for 25 bucks. What they're doing is playing on one of your unconscious biases, maybe not yours, but mine, of anchoring. So they're anchoring you to a price that's 100 bucks, and then they're telling you you'll get something for 25 bucks and 2 for 25. So now you're saying I've got a really good deal. But if you were to really look for the price of that little gadget that's made in China that doesn't last for 3 days, it probably isn't worth the money that you paid for it sometimes. So anchoring bias happens a lot, and it happens a lot in auditing and accounting, because what do we do when we go in for an audit? We look at statements provided by the client, we look at last year's financials, and by doing that unconsciously, we are anchoring to those financials. I'll give you one more example, availability bias. I know people that will drive from New York to Seattle, which is a few days of travel, because they're nervous about taking the plane. Now, the odds of being in a plane crash are 1 in 11 million. The odds of being in a car accident are 1 in a couple, thousand. So it may be 1 in 10,000 odds of a car accident. So the chances of you being in an accident while driving in your car for 4 days is much higher than flying on a plane for a couple of hours. Yet people make that determination because there are so many instances they read about in the paper about plane crashes. So the availability bias tends to skew them towards taking actually a more risky route than a more secure route, which is flying.
Okay, great, thanks. How do we retrain our brains to just also, again, be aware that this is happening?
There are many things we can do. One thing we can do is, because we're such prisoners of our own experience and of our own brains, I'm not sure that relying on ourselves to fix ourselves is a great idea. I mean, we can do that, but we have to be really conscious and self-aware. So a really great way is to get an accountability partner or to get a mentor or a colleague to watch you, to talk to you, and to be honest and direct with you about the biases that you might have that you don't even realize. Because remember, these are unconscious biases. So finding somebody who will be honest with us, keep us grounded, and tell us what they see, and actually finding multiple people to do that so that you can get lots of feedback is a great way to cut back on our own biases.
Great, that's a great tip. I'll have to email a few people when I get back to the office. So speaking of the office, this is can be, it sounds like, a sensitive topic. How do we, when we see it happening, what's a good way to approach someone? So you talked about the mentor relationship or something, but.
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned The Office, and, you know, the first thing I can tell you is don't be like Michael Scott in The Office if you watch that show. My first tip to you is don't be like him. But in terms of other tips of how to tackle the topic, as you mentioned correctly, Carrie, it is such a sensitive topic. And imagine if I said to you for a second, hey, Carrie, you know, I think you have some unconscious biases that I need to talk to you about. You know, you're a lovely person and you'll be gentle with me, but inside your hackles are going to rise, and you probably may not be as receptive to that as you would be if I said to you instead, you know, Carrie, I remember a time when I was in a similar situation like we're in now, and I remember the mistake that I made because I didn't realize how I was thinking and how my own unconscious biases got in my way of success. And if I told you a story about that, you know, that's a less defensive position for you to take, and you're a smart person, you're going to connect the dots, and even though I'm not telling you, you're going to figure out how it applies to you. So really, storytelling about our own experiences is a great way to gently introduce the topic of unconscious bias. The other way to do it is to get people to attend some courses, read some books, but the real secret to getting to unconscious bias is to become aware of them yourself rather than somebody else pointing them out to you.
Great. Well, this has been so informative. Thank you so much, Suri. And please stay tuned for our future human intelligence segments.